Oh, he hit him right on top of the head with it. It's legal. No!
Welcome to Last Match Standing, the podcast where we review, relive, and rank the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time. As always, I'm Spencer.
I'm Magnum Smollett.
Are
you all right?
I'm great.
Oh, hey, Landon.
Oh, man. Welcome to episode 20 of season 1 of Last Match Standing. Man, oh man.
20
episodes in.
You mean our podcast can almost drink?
Yeah,
almost.
You mean our podcast has probably been drinking for years?
Yeah, that's exactly what we mean.
That sounds about right.
Last drunk standing. We talked about this. This is why the bar is coming. Yeah.
We did.
We got to open that bar.
Yeah, we have to. Welcome back to the show. Super excited. This is going to be such a fun episode. But before we get to 1985, I want to get to right now. And Dylan Haggett, the Steamed Ham Champ, if you remember correctly, sent us an email about Undertaker CM Punk, which was our last match to make the list. He says, I personally hated the feud between Punk and Taker because it was so disrespectful to Paul Bearer. People shit on the exploitation of Eddie Guerrero's death during Rey Mysterio's push in 2006, but don't seem to do it with this feud. They could have had Punk go after Taker to get revenge from their feud 3.5 years prior in 2009.
Yeah, that steamed ham is a little extra crispy about that one.
I mean, I don't really blame him. I mean, I understand where he's coming from. I would. It's a little different because like the Eddie one that went on for like an entire year to the point where it's like, why the fuck are you still talking about this? But at the same time, like they dropped the whole Paul Bearer thing. Like it's like the second that bell rang, that was done. Because I think they knew we should not have done this, but it got heat.
The build made me uncomfortable too. It really did.
Yeah, I think Dylan is absolutely spot on. I think that in the moment, like in 2013, there were two types of fans. The ones that really thought it was too far the second it happened, and ones that enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to go back now and relive it 6 years later because you can look at it like, outside of that moment, it's a really interesting storyline with two incredible characters. But in the moment, and Landon, you touched on this during the episode, it was a lot in some instances, and maybe it did cross the line in a lot of ways. So Dylan, we totally get it. But I also, Jen Robichaux also said that she agreed that Undertaker's entrance was the greatest of all time, and she, in fact, was there.
Yeah, friend of the show.
So if she says it, it's a fact. So if you disagreed with me, I am sorry, but from someone that was there, it's
a fact.
It's fact. It's not even an opinion. Enjoy all your other Undertaker entrances, but this one at WrestleMania 29 was the best.
Would you say it's the best in the world?
Be careful.
There are a few things you could ever say that are the best in the world that came from New Jersey.
Well, Kevin Smith.
If you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever,
Carmella's onesie.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Wherever you're listening to us at, if you could rate us, review us, let us know how you're liking the show, share us. We'd love that so much. We love to hear any and all of your feedback. If you want to email us like Dylan, feel free to do that. lastmatchstanding@gmail.com. If you want to join our Patreon page and become a patron, whether you want to be Quadruple H or the of Liechtenstein, what are we?
Liechtenstein.
The champion. That's right. Yeah, I was thinking like, what's their ruler called? Yeah, the champion of Liechtenstein. Or if you want to be a Slammy Award winner, plenty of great perks. You could be listening to this episode early right now, perhaps.
Exactly.
If you join our Patreon page, we also have AEW Full Gear has passed at this point. So hopefully you joined us on Discord as a patron if you were there for that as well. But ultimately, we are super excited to get through to today's match because we've got some really cool stuff. We're going to have a season 1 finale that's going to recap sort of everything that we've done so far through the first 20 matches. And we want to hear from you. If there is a match on the list that you think, man, that one match, that one needs to be higher or that one needs to be lower. We want to hear from you. Hit us on Twitter, email us, Facebook us, whatever, however you want to get to us. Definitely let us know in the next week or so, because we'd love to take that feedback. And you never know what's going to happen on our season 1 finale as we recap everything next week for you. But let's get to here now. Let's get to, this is Landon's match that he picked after winning the Patreon exclusive trivia challenge. And it is 1985, November 28th, from Greensboro, North Carolina, and or Atlanta, Georgia. But in this instance, it's Greensboro, North Carolina, from the Greensboro Coliseum Complex. Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard in an I Quit steel cage match for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship.
This is Starrcade 85, The Gathering.
Is it a horror movie?
Wasn't the
Yes.
The Gathering sounds like a horror movie to me.
Did you watch this match?
Yeah.
It says yes. Yeah.
I believe my exact quote was, "Are we watching wrestling or are we watching a snuff film?"
Pretty much. It's brutal.
It's very brutal.
It's intense. And it's one of the greatest matches of all time. It's one of the greatest rivalries. One of the greatest performances of hate.
Oh yeah, because what's great about this match is it's a captivating story. It really is. To be honest, they really don't do a whole lot in this match, but you can just feel the hatred of both of these men. Just from as Tully's walking out to, and I looked it up. No one seems to know what he actually walked to the ring to. I've heard three different possibilities, but people who mention it aren't sure. So he walked to the ring to something.
They piped in some kind of generic stuff on the network.
Yeah, from the network. But somebody said that they believe he walked out to either Bob Seger or Motley Crue, but did not list a song. I'm like, oh, thank you very much for that. So
Who knows?
I would like to think that he walked out to Motley Crue. He's like, okay, I can kind of feel that, Motley Crue. All right, let's do this. 85, though.
Smoking in the boys' room.
Well, this wouldn't have been. That's not. I think that's 87. But he comes out and then TA's already in the ring, which kind of surprised me. Well, already in the ring.
Well, apparently TA kind of arrived when he was in the ring, and you don't really see it, especially in the network version, because they were cutting back from the backstage area. But TA, when he's in the ring, there's this smoke around him, and so it wasn't completely without fanfare. It was sort of this big I'm in the ring and I'm ready to go, sort of exciting moment. But you're right, we only see Tully come down to the ring. He's the only one that gets a quote unquote entrance,
and he's flanked by Baby Doll. Who, speaking of Baby Doll, this one we got to this match by another cage match containing both of these men for that U.S. title. So these men both had a cage match for the U.S. title. And that match was won because Baby Doll, who was disguised as a security guard, passed over Tully a foreign object. And initially I had trouble finding out what that foreign object was, but I found an interview where Tully says, and I quote, "When I hit Magnum with the ring of quarters, you could hear a pin drop in that arena. But once the referee counted to 3, then we had a riot on our hands."
Yeah, he says it was eerie quiet.
Oh, yeah.
In that building, which was July 21st, 1985. So only, 5 or so months prior to this happening. But that is, you're right, how the title switches hands before we get to this Starrcade match. So these guys have history. But let me tell you, do you know how the Baby Doll got her nickname?
Oh, my gosh. As I recall, it had something to do with a strip club.
You're absolutely right. You spoiled my ending, but you're absolutely right. She's the perfect 10. That's her name.
That was what it was.
The perfect 10 Baby Doll. Her name is Nicola Roberts is her name. And she said, listen, Nicola, not really a great name for a female manager. She said most of the guys were calling her Baby Doll anyway, so that's how it kind of stuck. But Baby Doll was the name of Tully's favorite strip club in San Antonio.
I remember curious about that. I'm like, it's so 80s to name him after that.
Yeah, there you go. How about that?
Wait a minute. So does that mean in kayfabe, Ty Dillinger is her son?
The perfect 10.
Yeah, like wait a minute.
I'd buy it.
That is the chairman, Sean Spears.
Yeah, there it is. And now it explains her throwing the chair in this match.
My God, it's like chairception.
It all
guys.
comes full circle.
Unbelievable.
Full circle. You mean the inner circle?
Oh, there it is. See?
So now Jericho's involved?
I mean, I actually meant to say Full Gear. Oh my God, this Sunday. But no, we're talking about Starrcade 85, the third annual Starrcade professional wrestling event. Mm-hmm. This is under Jim Crockett Promotions, which is under the NWA banner. And man, 1985. I mean, you had WrestleMania 1 going on over at WWF
6 months earlier.
Did you think that maybe we talked a little bit about this being held in two different arenas, and they just kind of went back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
Recently, on an episode of our spinoff podcast, Last Mania Standing, we covered WrestleMania 2,
which was held in 3 locations.
Do we think that may have had something to do with it? Do you think
know.
They saw an opportunity? Like maybe they thought, man, them Jim Crockett folks are making twice as much money, recording in 2 arenas. I don't know. I'm trying to get the reason behind doing something like this.
I definitely think that they saw that it was doable by NWA. Now, I don't think that maybe they made that decision based off of it, because if you're thinking about it, WrestleMania 2 was 86.
Yeah, it's a year later.
So it's really only 4 or 5 months after this Starrcade.
Yeah, because this is November 28th. Like WrestleMania 2 was in like late March.
Right. So they could have seen how successful Starrcade 85 was.
But you think things probably had to be planned already. At least building wise, if you're going to start selling tickets and stuff like that. So maybe they knew that NWA Starrcade was going to do this, and so they made it based off of those plans. But it's hard for me to say just based on time frame alone that they saw the success of Starrcade, of them doing it, and then said, "Yeah, let's do it now."
Yeah,
they might have felt a lot better about it. You know what I mean?
If anyone knows for sure,
let us know.
Why. Yeah. I would love to know why this multi-venue pay-per-view or closed circuit broadcast was so interesting to promoters back then. I don't get it, because to me, you're cheating half of your audience out of great matches that they could be, I just don't get it.
Well, I think it's very telling that you don't hear about them doing this kind of stuff anymore, or like in the past, whenever WWE has tried to do different, like 2 things. When they did like Raw 25, they had a few segments that happened in a different location that evidently nothing was happening, and the fans that paid way more money than the people in the Barclays Center were not happy about that, and made it very, very clear, like during the chant, like they're chanting like "We want wrestling" or "We're boring" or etc. But I'd be fascinated to know.
Yeah, another question that comes to mind when you think about Starrcade being the big event of the year. It always had a big match feel. It had to have something. Like the first Starrcade, it was the huge matchup between Harley Race and Ric Flair.
Yeah,
and
Flair
then
for the gold.
And then the second Starrcade in '84 was Dusty and Flair, but it was for $1 million was on the line, including the championship. And so it always had to be something huge. And obviously the Flair and Rhodes going at it again in '85 was the big deal. But this is 3 years of Starrcade, and you see WrestleMania come out in 1985 after Starrcade had already been around for 2 years. You think that's why we got WrestleMania?
I imagine so, yeah.
I'm sure it plays a big part.
Because like Vince wasn't doing shows like this. He would just do his regular circuit. Like they would do television. They have their house shows, and that was pretty much it. They have their big, like their Madison Square show, but that was a house show. Mm-hmm. And I think he saw Starrcade was being very successful and said, maybe we should capitalize on this, and he did.
Well, it was our first couple of super cards, so to speak. And so, sure, you follow in Starrcade's footsteps with their super card plan, and you put on WrestleMania. And I mean, Starrcade was successful for a long time. The last Starrcade was what 2000. Yeah. So we have
years.
Starrcade around for a while, and WrestleMania, of course, has outlived that for a lot of different reasons. But it absolutely makes sense that maybe Vince saw sort of the the building blocks around Starrcade and thought, surely I can do that. And of course, in fashion, he tried to one up it every time.
Did you notice how many belts were on the line on this card?
Yeah.
There were 6 title changes at Starrcade 85. The Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship, the National Heavyweight Championship, the United States Heavyweight Championship, which we'll discuss in this match, the World Tag Team Championship, the National Tag Team Championship, and the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. All of these titles are under the NWA, National Wrestling Alliance, umbrella, but the way that the territories were broken down, they had so many belts under the NWA umbrella. And the reason they were being defended at Starrcade, the reason so many belts were getting folded into Jim Crockett Promotions was because WWF was expanding nationally. They're making deals with USA Network to broadcast all over the country. So you see these localized promotions like Mid-Atlantic, which was under the NWA umbrella, but technically its own organization.
Right.
They had to shut their doors. They got folded into Jim Crockett,
right,
which is doing well.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So they just couldn't compete. And so they had their best stars going on to greener pastures. AWA, Hulk Hogan, jumped ship. Stampede Wrestling, Bret Hart, jumped ship. And it wasn't until Turner bailed out Crockett with the formation of WCW that WWF had any real competition. And, we all know how that turned out.
Yeah, the rest is history.
You know what is so fascinating to me about this Starrcade? One is just the depth of the feuds that we see. We could talk about Rhodes and Flair, of course, but focusing in on Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard, it didn't get much more personal than this.
No.
Oh, it blows my mind that almost at the same time, we talked about it. 5 months later, we get WrestleMania 2. And if you compare the WrestleMania 2 card to the Starrcade 85 card, it's no comparison.
No.
Like the quality of wrestling you're getting with the NWA is just insane. But for some reason, you've got the WWF taking over everything with, I think Hulk Hogan could go, okay, sure, but the quality wasn't there. Go back and watch WrestleMania 2.
Yeah, and if you're not sure about it, listen to our reliving of it on Patreon, because it was a piece of work to get through for sure.
I'm very confident you'll be far more entertained by us talking about it than actually watching.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. But when you talk about Magnum TA and you talk about Tully Blanchard, you talk about two guys that have some of the best work ethics in the history of the business. And they just had a really great philosophy on how they wanted to be portrayed and how they wanted the fans to see them. So, for instance, both of these guys really believed in something that Johnny the Champ Valentine used to say. Johnny Valentine used to say, I can't make them believe wrestling is real, but I sure can make them believe I am real.
Yes.
And Tully Blanchard's own dad said 95% of the people that come to a wrestling match believe it's not real. But when Dick the Bruiser and Cowboy Bob Ellis go at it, that's real. And so that's what TA and Blanchard wanted to be. They wanted to be that 5%. They wanted to be that 5% that people thought the rest of this show might not be completely real, but these two guys, when they get in the ring,
oh yeah,
my God, that's real. And that's a fight.
If I had to sum up this match in a 4-letter word, it would be real.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You are buying it the whole time. First of all, for me, because it doesn't feel like a wrestling match all the time. It feels like a very legitimate fight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were points we were watching this where I'm sitting here thinking, like, well, Jesus Christ, is he actually trying to kill him?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels that way. And it feels like these guys, like, when you watch current wrestling now, or just wrestling in general, you see somebody do a springboard and flip in the air. That's not natural. Like, you wouldn't do that if you were actually fighting. And when you look at this I Quit match, there is a moment where Tully Blanchard climbs the cage, jumps onto the top rope, and then just dives off that top rope onto TA. And when I saw it, I just thought, man, that looked natural. It's not pretty.
No, it was not pretty at all.
It's not pretty in any way, shape, or form, but it's real.
Yeah, it wasn't like nothing they did in this match had the intention of being pretty. They were trying to hurt each other. They were trying to embarrass, humiliate each other. I mean, this match wastes no time.
Yeah, so they do hate each other, but why do they hate each other? Coming into this match, you knew they hated each other, but Paul, what led to this to make you think that?
Well, there's a lot of conflicting stories between what happened in storyline and what happened in real life. But at the outset, I mean, Tully Blanchard basically made his name by feuding with the likes of Wahoo McDaniels and Dusty Rhodes. Terry Allen, Magnum, he was only really been in the business for not that long, to be honest. He had been in the business for a couple of years, but the rumors that I always heard was that Terry Allen was in a relationship with Tully Blanchard's ex-wife. That's the story I always heard. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that kind of bled into the storylines that they had on television. Now, the word in the street was that these men in real life just despised, did not like each other. But Tully Blanchard was the kind of guy that even if he would just as soon stab you in the back or shoot you, if he knew he could make money with you, he would do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Blanchard at this point was 31 years old, and TA was 26.
So young.
26. And these guys had a mission. Yes, they did not like each other for all those reasons you just said, but they knew that the crowd was going to pay to watch them beat the hell out of each other.
And they did. They really, really did. But what I think is really funny is how Terry Allen, Magnum, got the name Magnum.
How's that?
So about a year before this, I couldn't find the exact date, but when he first began the business, a lot of times when you're green, they would stick you with a pro, and you're basically like, you were their chauffeur. He was assigned to Andre the Giant. He was Andre's chauffeur for like the 83, 84 tour.
So was it based off of the size of Andre's condoms?
No. Terry said in an interview that they were getting lunch one day, and he had his hair was a little bit. He had the mullet, but it was a little bit shorter, and he had this beautiful bushy mustache. And they were getting lunch, and he was wearing Hawaiian shirt and jeans. And then Andre just goes, "Hey, Terry, you look like that Tom Selleck guy. You should be called Magnum TA." That got back to Dusty, and I said, "That's your name, Magnum TA."
So Andre gave the name.
Andre
really?
said, you should be Magnum TA.
Paul, listen, I realize that's a relevant story, but I just know you only told that story so that you could use your Andre impression.
Maybe.
He doesn't deny it.
No, maybe.
So the main thing I know about Magnum TA is he was one of the most beloved guys in that time period, the early 80s time period. And it's a shame we didn't get to see a little bit more of him.
Right.
No, we did not.
But I also know that apparently he was being groomed by Dusty Rhodes to be the next guy. Magnum TA was going to be, Hogan caliber guy.
He could have done it. He could have been
very
there.
well could have done it. And I would have loved to see, Magnum TA versus Bret Hart, Magnum TA versus Sting, these kind of things, which, I mean, maybe they would have happened maybe earlier in both of those guys' careers, and I just missed it. But to see them in their prime doing that work in a main event level would have been a treat.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, he goes on a feud with Ric Flair for the world title after this. So, he was about to explode as the next big guy. But unfortunately, less than a year after this, Magnum TA was in a car accident. He was driving home after a show. It had been raining. It was a very, very windy road. He hydroplaned and he hit a utility pole. And it took them about 3 hours to get him out of that car. And he was paralyzed. I'm talking quadriplegic, nothing below the neck. But after a lot of surgery, they got a lot of bone spurs out, and went to therapy for months and months, and he actually was able to walk again, but he can't wrestle anymore.
Yeah.
And he was 27 years old.
Damn.
It is one of the biggest what if cases because, like you guys said, he was on this meteoric rise, and thanks in large part to this feud, right, that we're covering right now. So to know that his in-ring career really ends a year later is a bummer. 2 years later or less, and we are glad though that in his short wrestling career, we were able to get one of the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time.
Nice segue.
Yeah. And probably the best pair of cowboy boots to step foot
Hey-o.
in the ring.
Man, those boots are great.
The boots,
They
the
are.
mullet, the mustache, and you can hear all of the women in that crowd because they love him so much.
Here's the thing.
Cheers.
Here's the thing about the women. Like Magnum TA was supposed to be this good guy, right? He was, huge face, but the build for this one is a little disturbing. So Magnum there's at some point in time, he's going after Baby Doll, and he forces himself on her and says, "She likes it. She likes it."
Well,
1985, ladies and gentlemen.
Not good. Not good.
See, I was going to skim over all that.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to skim over that because I as much as I love Magnum as a wrestler and I wish we could have seen more.
Right.
And this isn't necessarily a knock on him. It's a knock on,
It's a knock on the business. It's a knock on society at the time.
Yeah. I mean, 1985, we should be past this, guys. Like, this is not acceptable.
They were doing shit like that in the late 90s. So,
Yeah. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Lucius aggression era. That's all I got to say.
So let's focus in now. November 28th, 1985. On commentary, Paul, I love this because when we were watching this match, you said, I recognize that voice on commentary, right?
We got Tony Schiavone and Bob Iger.
Or Caudle.
I'm
as
sorry.
well. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But Tony Schiavone, that's the voice that you definitely remember.
Oh, yeah.
And
that
that stands out instantly.
He was the voice of JCP.
Yeah, and this is our second Bob Caudle match on our list of the greatest ever because he was on the call for Flair and Steamboat. So there you go. Bob Caudle didn't know he'd be around so much. Referee, come on, guys. A treat. 1985. Earl Hebner.
It's Baby Hebner.
Woo!
He still has all his hair. It's amazing.
He does have
He's
all his
not
hair.
selling T-shirts in the parking lot yet either.
It's really fun. So we talked about the entrances just a little bit, but as Tully gets into the ring with Baby Doll, Tom Miller is the ring announcer for this half of Starrcade, and he's wearing a phenomenal, burgundy suit. It's real good.
You could see it from the rafters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would wear that. I'm wearing it right now.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering why.
Is that what's blinding me right now?
It is. But when he announces Magnum TA, he announces him as the vastly popular Magnum TA, which I think is hysterical.
They didn't
was?
need to do that because, the crowd reaction told you that.
You could
He
hear it.
absolutely was. I just, could you imagine, if, this is what WWE should have done when Roman Reigns was getting booed out of the building when they wanted to be the top face so bad.
The
the vastly popular Roman Reigns.
Ooh.
The super shitty
Right.
Sheamus. It's just, we got to get this guy over as like a heel. What do we do? It's just like
Have
the
Sheamus-
despicable. Oh wait, that's probably actually a thing they did.
Yeah.
A disgusting, sniveling, suffering succotash, y'all.
Man, it just made me laugh a lot. I just thought it was pretty funny that's how they cheer for this guy. Which
No.
yeah. So anyway, it's a steel cage match. It's an I Quit match. Hebner's testing the microphone halfway through the match.
Hey, you forgot.
Oh, my God.
You forgot. And you do sort of forget because of how intense this match is
Oh, yeah, the
that
first
this is
5.
for the NWA United States Championship.
Yeah, let me tell you something. That's something that you see in the beginning, like the belt shown up. Hebner, parades it around, and then you don't think about the belt until the end.
No, you really don't, because they don't talk about the belt on commentary. They talk about just what these men are doing to each other. I mean, now, I Quit matches were not that common, at least not on television anyway. You didn't see them very often because they usually were these knockout, drag-out brawls. So to put that into a cage match, it's like, oh, man, anything goes. I mean, it's just... what I think is interesting about this is those first 2 to 3 minutes. It's not really like they're going hell for leather. Like they're beating each other. They're like there's a lot of eye raking, there's a lot of eye gouging, which there's a lot of strangling going on. And then but the story we're kind of getting is Tully is doing whatever he can. He's going after Magnum's eyes. He's trying to strangle him. At one point, he gets the microphone cable around his neck and tries to choke him out while saying, "Say I quit, say it." And then Landon hinted this earlier. He goes, no!
Oh, the guttural screams in this match just make it so real. I mean, it kind of gives me chills when I watch it.
And I just like you took the idea that like this has been a war beforehand, but this is a war, and it's barely 3 minutes in this match before Magnum gets hurled into the cage and gets busted open.
Oh, the aura of determination and machismo emanating from Magnum. It just like this is right after standing there. He's like, I'm the fucking man.
Okay, well he has a luscious blonde mullet.
Oh, he has thick hair.
I mean, I literally said this is like blonde Scott Hall.
He looks to me like a cross between Sid Vicious and Brian Pillman.
That's okay. Yeah,
you see it?
A little bit more handsome though.
Oh, he's super handsome.
This is a ruggedly handsome man.
Oh, he's got the Rick Rude stash. So there you go.
Oh, he's got the Tom Selleck stash.
This is something that Jesse Ventura would have said. Ruggedly handsome.
That's
the phrase
individual
that Jesse Ventura would have used to describe Magnum TA.
He is. I mean, he's got barrel chested and he's got chest hair. Come on.
I can't keep my pants on, gorilla.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Oh man, but what I find fascinating is as soon as he gets busted open, what's the first thing that Tully Blanchard does? He starts ripping at the cut. He gets his fingers and he starts biting him on the forehead. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man, that's how you get hepatitis.
Well, it almost was like that was the goal in this match for a little while because
give your opponent hepatitis match. There's a lot of biting near like cuts and bleeding.
Yeah, because TA so he gets his face busted open, right? But then Tully, he gets thrown into the cage too, but his arm.
Oh, he gets this really sick cut in his arm.
It looks like there's this big open wound on his arm almost, and it looks like Magnum is just
bites it.
Yeah, he's biting it, and it's like he's ripping the skin apart. Guys, it's nasty. Like, it's 1985. It's nasty.
This match was extremely ahead of its time. It was extremely brutal. It was very rough. So there was a right hand from Magnum that knocks Tully on his ass and through the ropes.
He hits the cage. I was like, yes.
And, one thing that was kind of distracting for me was you could see the microphone in the corner of the cage the whole match. And it's got this long cord. It's just like this is before they had the wireless mics.
They use it as a weapon.
They did.
After Magnum gets busted open, Tully immediately has the microphone in his mouth. He's screaming, "Say I quit." And he's like, "Nah, no." And so what Tully does is he starts digging the microphone into the open cut and hitting him in the forehead with it.
Everything they can as a weapon. It's so intelligent. Mm-hmm.
And then like
the smoothest blade job in history.
Oh yeah, because we could not find it. We looked for that blade job.
Well, I didn't see the Tully one, but when Magnum hits the cage, he pops back off the cage and rolls across the center of the ring, and his arms just sort of slide across his head, and it's so smooth. Like there's just no way you would have known.
I mean, this isn't WrestleMania 2. King Kong Bundy gets thrown into the cage, and then the camera does a slow-mo zoom in as he's blading. This is like was it a blade job, or did he move his arms to trick people like us who thought it was the blade job?
I need you to stop saying blade job.
He's just working. He's working us like 34 years ago.
He said, "Surely in 2019 there'll be 3 guys in Baton Rouge, Louisiana that are going to talk about this, and they won't know."
You know what I really appreciated in the middle of this match that had nothing to do with the match? Earl Hebner testing the microphone.
Oh yeah.
God. We're all going like, what the fuck was that? And then we look over and there's Earl in the
Earl
corner.
Hebner's not even
playing
watching
the
him wrestling.
microphone.
He's got his hairs. He's got bangs in his eyes. He's
Like it was one of those moments. Like it reminds me of my wedding. So at my wedding, Hope and I are up there, and we're going through. We're getting to the part where we're about to exchange rings or something, and then
it's a wedding.
the priest turns to me and he's just like, "Guys, I got to tell you, I forgot to do the flower bit with your moms." So it's like Earl had this moment in the middle of the ring where he's just like, "Did I check the microphone?" It's like, "Oh, did I leave the oven on?"
Oh, by the way, while he's checking the microphone, Tully is trying to gouge out Magnum's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks really brutal. Like it literally looks like he's trying to gouge that. Like you see like little eye pokes in other like Ric Flair will do an eye poke every now and then. This was something else.
Tully has like his fingers like dug into Magnum's forehead. It's scary.
And it's sold so well because the way they do this and make it so believable is, I think maybe he had his fingers in his eyes. But another thing that they do to make it so believable is Magnum puts his arms above over his face. He puts his hands above, like over Tully's hands. Mm-hmm. And so you can't actually see.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it looks so genuine. And,
well, that's how you react. You try to pull
screaming.
His hands away. Oh, yeah. Like you mentioned, like guttural screams. Yes. Like they're horrifying.
And a lot of that's because, Tully's in control of this match for the middle part of this match, for most of that middle part of this match. And he's using the microphone constantly. So the microphone pretty much stays near where they are in the middle of the ring. So all we're hearing is amplified by that microphone. Because as Earl Hebner showed us, it does work.
Oh, yeah. And there's a point in how far we're going to say this while calling a match. We get this beautiful moment where the men actually do hit the ropes. And then Magnum does, like he picks him up like he's going to do a military press and then drops him to a stun gun on the top rope. And I'm like, oh! And somewhere a young Steve Austin said, stun gun. Now that's an idea for a move.
Magnum goes to ask Tully to quit with the microphone. And Tully says no. And at this point, Magnum is like standing and he's got like this power stance over him. And it just is a really good silhouette moment. And he's got the microphone down to Tully. And Tully says no. And headbutts TA in, we'll call it the lower abdomen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This match is just extremely physical from bell to bell.
And they just start, once again, biting, scratching, clawing.
Microphone shots are super stiff. At one point, a really fun moment of this match, Tully goes for the pin. Just on instinct. And Hebner just stands there.
He doesn't even tell him
that's
that.
such a real moment. That's just like, I'm a pro wrestler. Big move. Pin. Oh, shit, I can't win that way.
I loved it.
And then
I love it too.
He goes for an elbow drop, a big elbow drop, but he misses that big elbow drop. Ooh, and then Magnum gets that microphone, starts grinding it into Tully's forehead.
Yeah, he misses the elbow drop, and there's a huge pop from the crowd.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. But he gets that microphone into his forehead, and he gets the microphone into the shoulder, and he starts choking him with the microphone cord. I'm like, oh, my God, please stop this match.
Well, Tully was ahead and was really controlling for so much that when he does miss that elbow, the crowd's like, oh, finally, like there's a chance here. Like this is Magnum's moment. He's going to make it happen.
He goes, we got a 10-punch spot. I'm like, yeah, 10-punch. And then immediately an inverted atomic drop.
It's a tough, like, sometimes you see an inverted atomic drop and you're like, all right.
That's a low blow.
But this one, it looked painful.
That was a low blow.
Well, it was from the middle rope.
Yeah.
He was up there. I don't think I've ever seen one done from the middle rope before.
Not like that, no.
And definitely not this stiff.
Right. And this is where the match changes. This is where it goes from brutal and tough to sadistic.
Oh, yeah, because like after that happens, Tully chucks Earl Hebner out of the way, hits the cage, and then I was like, whoa, there's a chair in the ring. Where the hell did that come from? Baby Doll threw a wooden chair over the cage in the middle of the ring, and it explodes when it hits the ring.
Well, no, so it's fine when it gets in the ring, but then Tully takes the chair and just looks like he might do something with it, and then just smashes it to the ground. Everyone's like,
what is he doing?
Why the hell did he do that? And it's a wooden chair, so it splinters.
And he takes up a big old forearm-sized shard of that, and he tries to stab Magnum in the forehead with it.
Yeah, so two things about that. One of them is that he literally kicks Earl Hebner. Like, just kicks him. And
before he kicks him, he throws him halfway across the ring like a sack of potatoes.
Right. He throws him, and then once he's walking around Magnum, it's like he passes Earl again. So he's like, well, okay, let me just kick you again. So he kicks him, and this is the type of kick that if Earl Hebner took that at any point during his WWF career,
he'd be sleeping for an hour.
Right. But he seems fine. So
younger.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Much younger.
Here's the thing about the chair. Alan says about that chair, he says, the way the chair broke just made the nastiest weapon. That was just total happenstance. They threw this wooden chair in there, and we just figured it would break, and there'd be this little piece of wood. But it made the ghastliest looking spike of all time.
It's like 2 or 3 different points that all like made this fork.
I mean, how lucky?
It's gross.
How lucky were they?
Right.
Like, because that chair breaks any other way, and we might not get that perfect steak like.
Yeah, I mean, it could splinter and you get something like the size of somebody's finger, which the crowd wouldn't be able to see because it's too small.
But it would have worked on camera.
It would have.
Yeah, but instead it looks like, and you can hold it because it looks like it has a handle, and the crowd can see it. It looks like a pickaxe.
It does. But when he starts trying to drive it into Terry's eye, you can hear the entire audience just go, and it's just it's hard to watch, and it's a good like minute of him just trying to drive it into Terry's eye.
And all this happened, and you hear Baby Doll screaming from the. It's like you're watching a horror movie.
Yeah.
She's like, Caleb. And then just like, oh God, dear. And then Terry just starts throwing knees, whatever he can. He knees Tully in like the ribs. He knees Tully in the head, and then he gets that piece of wood, and he drives it directly into Tully's forehead, and then just blood starts just pooling out, and he's just screaming, "Ask him, ask him!" And then, surely enough, Earl says, "Do you quit?" And Tully goes, yes, and then like the amount of blood, it is just cascading down his forehead while this is going on.
And this is 1985. Like, what makes this match so special for me is it's not a technical amateur wrestling match. It's not a hardcore wrestling match with flaming tables and barbed wire steel chair shots. This is what happens when two men who hate each other are standing across from each other in a literal cage, like caged animals.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
When Magnum notices the blood on Tully's arm, he starts biting it. Like, things like that happen in this match. It was dark.
Very dark. But what for me, the most important moment in this is after Magnum wins. Before he grabs the belt, he grabs another larger piece of wood, and he charges over to Tully like he's going to stab him with it, and then he just throws it down, and then takes the belt from Earl and leaves the cage.
And Tully is shivering in fear, in pain.
Like he's lost a pint of blood.
And it leaves this lasting image that tells you about the kind of man that Magnum is and what he just did and what he could have done. And later he says, at that point in time, the fans really thought we were going to kill each other. But I said I would let him live. It was like I was ready to run this right through his skull, but I finally threw it down and walked away. That was the conclusion of the match. But the visual effect was tremendous.
Oh, the look in his eyes, because they do a tight shot of him holding that piece of wood.
There is a perfect shot of him holding it up and considering finishing him off.
There's murderous intent in those eyes, and he doesn't do it.
But Tully Blanchard, and both of you guys are going to know how much sense this makes. Tully Blanchard later says, like in interviews later, I never said I quit.
He didn't.
Never would I say I quit. All he said was yes. Quit.
Earl asked him, "Do you give up?" And he said yes.
So, or, that could have been out of pleasure. If he really likes the pain, he could have been, yes.
Are you suggesting,
I guess that's his defense.
So what you're saying is Clive Barker was watching this and then wrote The Hellbound Heart?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Who the hell is Clive Barker?
Hellraiser.
Oh, gotcha.
That's exactly what you were saying.
Exactly.
Who's that guy? Man, so let's do favorite moments.
That ending.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you that the finish, the image where Magnum TA just could have, in your mind and the fans watching it, and they were rooting it on. They wanted it to
they were
happen.
cheering for it.
He could have killed Tully Blanchard.
Tully was a despicable heel.
Right. He was one of the very best heels. I mean, this is literally the night that the Four Horsemen form.
Oh yeah, like
later
they form officially like the next like TV taping.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
They're not called the Four Horsemen for about another 2 or 3 weeks. But like the main event of this show, which happens in Atlanta, is Rhodes and Flair, like the rematch, and that one ends in like the Dusty finish, where there's a dirty finish with Dusty. It's overturned literally the next night, and then Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson, Ric Flair, and then Tully Blanchard comes in to help them beat down Dusty Rhodes. And like a week later, Arn Anderson cuts this promo. He says, "Never before have so few caused so much havoc. You have to go back to the time, the old days, where the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and he held his fingers, and then that was it." And then Ric Flair said that it was actually about 2 or 3 weeks of change, just holding up the four and chanting "Horsemen" at them Horsemen, and so they became the Four Horsemen. And that's like the most important stable in the history of professional wrestling.
Right. And so that speaks to exactly how the fans felt about Tully Blanchard at this moment, because he was just literally days away from joining that stable, So just having a Magnum TA, this guy that the fans loved, the women loved, and he was about to kill Tully Blanchard and then chooses to just walk away. Brilliant. I mean, just brilliant.
Very, very powerful moment.
Landon, your favorite moment?
Probably. No, I mean, how do you not love the awesome, picture perfect moment of TA making the decision, standing over Tully, a shaking, scared Tully with baby doll crying,
covered in blood,
and choosing to walk away. I mean, it's just a great moment.
Yeah.
It's also a great moment. We've mentioned a couple times how this show was simulcast from 2 locations. One location, Greensboro, North Carolina. The other location, Atlanta, Georgia. And we discussed this briefly before the mics went on. Because we watched the entire show. And about 4 or 5 minutes in the main event, I'm sitting there going wow, that fan's really, really annoying. There is this one fan in Atlanta.
Oh
no.
Woo! 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 Woo!
I'm very glad this match took place in Greensboro.
Ric Flair
kidding.
had just started doing the
boy.
woo, and there's this one fucking fan. Knock, knock, Spencer.
Who's there?
Woo! 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 The whole fucking match.
Oh, it's
God.
Yeah, it's bad. And he either was holding the microphone or he was right next to the camera, whatever.
He was so
because you would hear
loud.
him the entire time through
We
that main
couldn't
event.
hear the commentary because this guy was being so fucking loud.
Oh,
We were going to talk about that match, but we decided not to.
all thanks to that guy.
Thanks, guy.
From 34 years ago.
What do we call him?
Woo. Woo, woo, woo. Wait
Oh,
a minute.
no.
Wait, what about Zack Ryder's dad?
That's a new Patreon tier.
There it is.
Zack Ryder's dad.
There it is. Well, now here we go. For the last time in season 1, we have to rank it. We've done it 19 times before. You know what the easiest one was?
The first
The
one.
first one.
Nothing to defend against.
That one was easy.
This is going to be pretty hard because
It's
it's got 19 matches to
Gotten
contend with.
exponentially harder since then. And if I remember correctly, Landon pressured me. He almost bullied me into going first last time.
I listened to it today. He did bully you.
He bullied me. So here we are. We have 19 matches to go through. Tully Blanchard, Magnum TA, in what is widely considered one of the greatest NWA matches of all time.
And I think since Landon picked the match, it's only fair if Landon ranks the match first.
Paul, I don't think you have ranked it first yet.
Oh, have you?
Or you may have, but you didn't last week.
It's been a minute.
You didn't last week.
I'm pretty sure the last time I went first was Triple H and Shawn Michaels.
So I think you're due.
Okay.
I'll go last if it was mine, right?
All
This is mine.
right,
I'll go
all
last.
right.
Yeah.
I just need some time.
Okay, so that being said, if I'm going first, then it's only fitting that this is number one. Just kidding.
Is it?
I wouldn't say number one. Though, I really am strongly considering this as like a top 10 contender. This is a very, very poignant match. Although we always go down the rabbit hole of, is it better than this match? Is it better than this match? Is it better than this match? So I think the most fair thing to do is, what's the most brutal knockdown, drag-out brawl we've covered so far? And that would be Cactus Jack and Triple H. So my first thing is I would put it right there. Another just crazy wild brawl was Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka. So I think about it, okay, is it better than that match? And I think it is. So my next guess would be, okay, what's right above Awesome and Tanaka? That's the Royal Rumble 1992. The Royal Rumble 1992, there's no blood, there's no eye gouging, there's no attempted murder. But that is just such a fantastic match. So I think I would put it at number 14 and bump down Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka.
Wow. Number 14.
Yes. There are 14 woot. No, just kidding.
Oh, man. Number 14. Interesting. So I don't like ranking things. It's very difficult.
Well, that's it, folks.
Yeah,
this
you
is our
guys
last
later.
episode.
No, I mean, we knew this going in, that it was going to get harder and harder. And the thing is about this match that I'm finding particularly difficult is that I don't think it's like anything else on the list. Even when you talk about Cactus Jack Triple H, like, I understand why we want to compare it to that, and especially Awesome and Tanaka, just because of how hardcore it is. I think this match is so different.
Oh, it is. This is like all drama, all storytelling.
And it's just a fight. I like this. This is not one of the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time. It's one of the 100 greatest fights.
Oh yeah,
of all time, and it's a great match at Starrcade, and it's one of the greatest feuds of all time. So it absolutely deserves a spot on this list. I always like to start: should it be in the top 10 or should it not? I am very back and forth on that. I also am thinking about the time that this match took place, so 1985. The closest that we have to that is Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat, and these matches are so different. It's almost apples and oranges.
It's 4 years later,
right?
And the business had changed so much.
Yeah, so kind of taking your route, Paul, I also would put it above Awesome and Tanaka. I would actually put it at number 12, underneath Eddie and Ray, and right above Angle and Undertaker, just because this is such a literal blood feud. And one that leaves us with some of the most lasting images in wrestling history, particularly from 1985. I mean, in a time where you have Starrcade, you have WrestleMania, you have Flair and Rhodes, and you get this feud when you're left here with Magnum TA deciding not to murder Tully Blanchard. It's, I don't know. That's where I'm going to say right now, and we'll see what Landon says and how we go there.
No pressure, Landon.
He might have. Landon, for all we know, could have thought top 5, and he could persuade us that way. I don't know what he's thinking, mostly because he's being very stoic,
very Magnum-esque right now.
Oh, ruggedly handsome. That's Landon right now.
I have no idea.
Oh,
so that's why you wanted to go last.
It's so difficult to rank this one for all the reasons that you said.
Yeah, I feel like this is another match, and we've had a couple on this list so far that you can totally see where some listeners are going to think top 5, and you can totally see where some listeners are going to think bottom 5.
Okay. If I look at what it's most like, I agree that it's probably most like Cactus Jack versus Triple H, but it's better than that. The next thing it's most like is Ric Flair and Steamboat, just based off of the time period and just the ambiance. That's the kind of crowd they have. Obviously it's the NWA, WCW kind of world. Flair and Steamboat is one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time. One of the greatest rivalries, one of the greatest stories ever told in a wrestling ring. Don't think it quite reaches that caliber.
No, I wouldn't say so.
But I think there's something to be said for two men going into a cage and having the I Quit match to define what an I Quit match is. I don't think there was an I Quit match after that match that wasn't judged against this match.
Probably not.
So it is important.
That's a really great point.
I think if I'm looking at top 10, it's better than Charlotte, Sasha, Becky. It's better than Nakamura, Ibushi. So I guess I would be inclined to put it at number 9, right under the Styles, Joe, Daniels, Unbreakable 3-Way.
Boy.
But that's just my opinion.
That is a very
All right, we'll leave it there. We'll see you guys later.
Oh, no,
Season
no,
2.
No, we're not quite
We're
there
not
yet.
done yet.
All right, we got to have a little more
Okay,
discussion.
yeah.
Okay, so I said 14. You said 12.
I did.
And you said 9. Okay. Normally, we would immediately go, want to make the distance, but actually, I actually want to open the floor on this one. Okay. I did not disagree with anything either of you said. But I do think that I fell into that trap of this is an older match and it's more story than wrestle. Well, I would be inclined to agree with Landon on this one because Nakamura and Ibushi is a very, very similar match. It are two guys that hit each other and they beat the shit out of each other. The only real difference is they weren't an occasion. There wasn't any blood. There was no attempted murder. But that is probably the most similar to this on our list right now. So, Landon, I don't often say this, but I think you're right.
Spencer?
Damn it. You know what won me over was your comment about the I Quit match. Because I think it has stood the test of time in that regard. And I do think that I Quit matches today are compared to that match. I think that there are still few times in professional wrestling history that we've reached that level of brutality in a way that was believable.
This is very believable.
In a way that was believable. Because we've seen some absurd things, and we've seen some gross things, and we've seen some crazy things. And just watch anything that Sabu's ever done. But very few of those moments make as much sense as this match does in this moment. And very few of them feel as legitimate as this does. So, with that being said, I'm okay with 9 as well.
Number 9.
Well, I'm glad I went last.
Oh, boy. There you go. Yeah, so there you go. Number 9. We've ranked 20 matches. Season 1.
We have ranked 20 matches.
Wild.
20 down, 80 to go.
And I'm so sorry, Spencer. I know you really wanted the Charlotte, Sasha, Becky to be in the top 10. Very sorry.
It's really hurting my feelings. I mean, it really is. But I'm holding out hope because I do think another one of my favorite matches of all time is going to be in the top 10.
I think so.
And we'll talk about that when we get there. But, maybe that could be the season 2 premiere. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But what we have to do first is our season 1 recap, which we will be doing next week. So again, if you totally disagree with us about this match, or if you think this is great and it should be higher, or whatever you think, we would like to know about it. We want to know, based off of the list of the top 20 so far, and we're going to post this list this week on Twitter and on our Patreon. We're going to give it a couple of days to give people time to watch this episode, but expect to see this list on, where you can find us, Facebook, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And if there's one match that you think deserved a lot better, or you think is ranked, way too high and is overrated, we want to know what that match is, because we want to take all of that into consideration with our season 1 recap. Because, like we said, you never know what's going to happen. All we know is that it's been one hell of a fun ride so far through season 1.
Oh, absolutely.
It has. It's been crazy. We've gone through a lot of matches. We've watched 20 wrestling matches spanning a lot of decades. And we went all the way to Japan, and we've covered NWA matches, WCW matches, ECW matches, obviously WWF, and it's been a wild ride. And we definitely appreciate every single person listening right now, and every single person who hopped on Patreon and has supported us. Over on Patreon, you can listen to Last Mania Standing, which is a spinoff podcast, which we've had a lot of fun doing. And that we would never have been able to have these conversations without all of you guys offering up these match suggestions and all of the support. So we really appreciate it.
Right. So, again, you're absolutely right. I can't wait to see what season 2 brings us with more of your fan interaction because when we started this podcast, we set out for it to be one that was made basically with as much help from the fans as possible. And we want to keep that up. So I think season 2 is gonna be a lot more of that as well.
Bigger, badder, bolder.
Again, thank you to everyone listening. Feel free to review us, rate us, share us, interact with us. We want to hear your feedback always, particularly about how your top 20 would look at this particular moment in time with the 20 matches that we've covered. So next week, we can't wait to talk to you about that season 1 recap, and then we'll see you for season 2. But until then, I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Landon.
And this is Last Match Standing.